So, good evening, everybody. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to come out tonight. What you're going to hear in a few minutes is a replication of the presentation that our department did yesterday for all the junior classes. So, I'm Mr. Peck. I'm one of the guidance counselors here, school counselors. I know, that's a sore subject. This is Ms. Leanne Langen. And also we have Roxanne Henning. I also want to say thank you to Janet James. Janet in the back is recording this. This will be posted, so if you have friends who cannot make it tonight, it will be posted on our website. What you received is a copy of a packet that we offer all of our students. It's post-high school planning and has everything about Naviance, scholarships, colleges, military, trade schools, gap years, and all the different resources that we make available to your students. So I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Langen.
Everything that we're discussing is also in the packet. So again, a lot of information is going to be coming your way. Any questions that you have, please let us know. But hopefully, you guys can review the packets on your own. And then if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to your specific counselor. The second form that you got is a transcript release form. I will go over it a little bit more, just kind of talking about transcripts, but basically this is giving us permission to send out the transcripts to the schools. We cannot do that unless this is filled out. So honestly, after you're done tonight, you can fill it out, drop it off in the beginning or in the front, because again, if this is not filled out, we cannot send your students' transcripts to their schools. So Mr. Peck has A to B, Mrs. Henning has C to FP, I have FR to KI, Mr. Aminsky has KJ to NF, Ms. Johns has NG to SC, and then Mrs. Rogers, who was formerly Miss Wells, she has SD to Z. So our alpha or our counselors have not changed within the past 2 years, but again, if you had Miss Wells, her name is now Mrs. Rogers. Hopefully your students have already met and know who their counselor is, but we will be meeting with our juniors individually within the next few weeks to go over their post-secondary plans. And then we have a career counselor, Dr. Maffei. Any kind of career questions will be directed to her. This is a quick recap of the graduation requirements. So it's mainly kind of on us to go over their requirements with your students. If they have any questions, or if you have any questions, obviously, again, please let us know. But there's a certain amount of credits and classes that your students have to take. You need 23.5 credits, and there's certain requirements that meet that 23.5. So by the end of their senior year, they have to have all those requirements. In addition, there's also a Keystone pathway. So your students took the Keystone exams already, and then if they didn't get a proficient or advanced, then we help them figure out what kind of pathway they're gonna meet. There's 5 different pathways. So a combination of those 2 things will get your child to graduate. Again, we are here to help them. If you are confused, obviously, let us know and we can answer questions. But we do have conversations with the juniors when we're doing our scheduling, and everyone should be pretty much up to date with what they need for next year. Okay, so I mentioned the transcript. I mentioned the transcript before. We gave each student a copy of their own transcript in the classrooms yesterday. So if you want to see what it looks like, they should have it. Hopefully it's not at the bottom of their backpack, but they should have it. The transcript is basically a culmination of everything that they've done in high school so far. So right now, if you were to look at it, it would have their 9th to 11th grade classes on it, their grades, and then the credit for their grades. Not all of the 11th grade classes will have their grade or the credit, because obviously the 11th grade isn't done yet. But this kind of gives you an idea of where your child stands if they're looking for certain colleges to go into. It also has the GPA at the bottom, their weighted and their unweighted GPA. But again, this is kind of we give it to them now while you guys are doing that college search, so then you can kind of see where you lie when you're applying. Next year, when we're in the when they're a senior, we're going to go back into the classrooms again, talk about the college application process again, and then they're going to get their updated transcript with all of their junior year up into their junior year classes. And the transcript that they receive their senior year is what we're going to be sending out to all of their colleges. So I would probably have look over it with them. If there's any discrepancies, let us know again. But it's pretty much what they have up until this far. Yeah. Do you have anything to add? No. Okay. And again, we need the transcript release form in order to send that out to all of the colleges when the applications are due and when you guys are submitting everything.
You said you also send them out in senior year. Is it up to a certain semester?
So it's right after their junior year. So it's going to be everything up into their junior. It's going to have their senior year classes, but it's not going to have any grades of their senior year. Because usually, like, we're going into the classrooms, like, first, second week of September. We'll go over kind of like the deadlines for applying, but usually some of the students, they apply on the earlier side, which is around November. And by that time, like, maybe the first marking period's ending, maybe not even. So, like, there's not enough time for us to submit grades to the colleges.
But students will request a copy of their unofficial transcript to allow them to self-report in there. And there are a variety of other schools that use a self-reported, it's called the STAR, it used to be called the SRAR, which is self-reported academic record. Schools like Penn State, Temple, University of Pittsburgh, University of Delaware, all use it. There are quite a few. And so students can request a transcript at any time to use that.
Usually students are taking that in the spring of their junior year. So this is a good time for students to be taking it. The next one that we're offering here is going to be in June. And then ACT is a different style of test. So that runs a little bit differently than the SAT. So your students have had practice taking kind of the SAT by taking that PSAT. They've taken that in the fall. So they've seen that kind of content before. They kind of know how that test works. There's a little bit more time per question on the SAT versus the ACT. The ACT is a little bit of a different test because it also has a science section in it.
They got rid of that.
Oh, really?
They got rid of it?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
talking with-
well, the landscape is ever changing, so you know, that's sort of the college admissions field. But just so you know, for the ACT, what they've done with that, it's a little different. So students, if they want to retest in the SAT, they have to take the entire test again. The ACT, they can just test a portion of it. So they can just test the math, or they can just test the English. So that's another option. There are free practice tests for both the SAT and the ACT. I know ACT.org has one free practice test. And I think between Khan Academy and College Board, there are about 6 free practice tests. We have heard in the past that when students are putting in some time, doing some test prep, that they could actually increase their score by even like 100 points. So, you know, maybe 20 hours over time could really improve a score. Also, with the standardized testing, students have choice. They don't have to send their SAT scores. So not every school anymore requires that SAT, but a more competitive program like maybe engineering or nursing or, you know, anything in the medical field, they likely will want that I can't even talk, SAT score or ACT score. And we usually see that a lot of our southern schools, they do like to definitely see a score. So that'll be part of their process also. You'll see up there we have some ACT deadlines, a deadline to register. So we just want students to be mindful of the deadlines that are coming up for things like that they're going to need to be aware of.
When it comes time to submitting stuff, we submit the transcripts like I mentioned. We do not submit scores. So if you decide that you want to send your score to whatever school you want to, you have to do that on your own. You'll see, like, again, like we mentioned, you might not have to do it. That's called test optional. And you'll see that on the admissions when you're looking and doing research on the schools. But again, we do not send any of the scores to the schools. Your students should already have a College Board account because they did do the PSAT. If they don't know their login, we just say like reset your password because you might have to call College Board or College Board customer service, but they should have the login for that information. So yeah, you just have to ask them.
I want to mention. One thing that comes up quite a few times with students is that the first time they're going to take either the SAT or the ACT, they like to go in cold. They want to sit there and say, I want to do a baseline. Why? You're spending money. Have them practice, because most schools, the only exception I know of is Penn State University does not superscore. They take the best sitting. But most schools will say if you take the test multiple times, they'll take your best verbal, best nonverbal, superscore it into your best composite score. So put time and energy into everyone, especially the first one.
That's why we give them the PSAT, so you guys don't have to pay for it, and they can practice that way. So they have it their sophomore year and their junior year, but that's pretty much where, like, that's when you wanted to, like, get that, like, just, what was it? What did you call it?
Superscore.
or the going in cold or whatever like that. Yeah, like that's when like they're practicing, and then when like you're paying money for the SAT, so you want to make sure that they're prepared for it. Yeah.
So for our students taking AP classes, the AP exams will be coming up this May. We like students to challenge themselves, give them an opportunity to do college level coursework. When students are taking those AP exams, there's a scoring system of from 1 to 5. Students typically, colleges are taking those 4s and 5s for students, so they can get college credit for obtaining those kinds of scores. Occasionally, you might see a 3 accepted, but basically the 4s and the 5s are what colleges are looking for. What's nice about that too is because you're getting college credit potentially for that, it may not necessarily count for the subject that the test was taken in, because it depends on the program and what they want you to take, depending on how competitive that program is. However, but it could be like an elective credit. And so I personally had a student here who took so many AP tests and did so well that she actually finished a year early from college. So it was one less year she had to pay for, so she got to go out in her working field earlier, and it saved her money. So, you know, we also have colleges, they like to see that kids are challenging themselves. So we want them to challenge themselves. We want them to grow. We want them to see how well they can stretch, you know, out of their normal boundaries, within reason, of course, if it's a good fit for them. If students are sending any of those scores to colleges, they will also log into their College Board account and send it directly from their account. We don't send those either. Okay. Anything to add?
I was just gonna say, when you're looking at the transcript, any honors, dual enrollment, or AP classes are weighted differently than academic. So you'll see that there's 2 different kinds of GPAs, weighted and unweighted. Weighted takes into account the honors, the dual enrollment, the AP. So again, like you'll see that there's probably like the weighted one's probably higher depending on how many honors and AP classes your student has taken. When you're applying for like the schools, it'll probably say like weighted or unweighted what they're wanting to see. But usually the kids they put, is it typically like the weighted GPA that they just, yeah.
Yeah. So whenever we're asked for a GPA, we're always going to put out their best and their highest GPA. Unless they're very specific, we're always giving them the highest because we want to give them the best edge possible.
The other thing I want to say about the AP scores, and colleges will, the idea behind challenging yourself can be sometimes more rigorous, and students worry that their GPA, or they're not going to do as well in an honors or an AP than they would in an academic. So that's why they're rewarded with a weighted score, and colleges recognize that. And so it's the second component is when you send, if you take a dual enrollment class, like through Montgomery County Community College, we used to use Harrisburg Area Community College, you send the official transcripts to the schools that your kids are attending, along with AP scores. It frees up your schedule to do study abroad, do a major and a minor. And as Mrs. Henning said, a student could graduate a year early. But it just frees up their schedule to do so many other things when they're off in college. So it's definitely encouraged.
When you're applying though, you don't want to convert it. You want to put it in like the 100-point scale. And Common App, which is going to be like the most frequent like program that you guys will be using to apply, will be like, what is the scale of the GPA? And it will say, it will give you the 100 points.
Wait, question? Yes.
If you take an AP test and you don't think you did well on it, you have to submit in writing to College Board to have that score excluded. If you don't, it will go out in a complete score report. So, yeah, if you're going to, but let's say you took one test, you took 5 tests, and you didn't score well on one, but you scored 4, unless you had reached out right when you took the test and you didn't do well, and if you didn't request to have that score excluded, it will go out with the entire batch.
Is there a form for that, or is that on the website?
You reach out to College Board, and when you do take an AP, they do send all kinds of information saying if you want to have your scores excluded, you have to just put it in writing to them. You could always call College Board customer service. They're very helpful. There's all kinds, there's a link. If you just go to collegeboard.org, you scroll down to the bottom, contact us, and then what's it in regard to? Is it SATs, PSATs, APs. Are you a parent? Are you a student? Are you a administrator or educator? And then there's a 1-800 number.
So one of the things that we're working with students are very familiar with Naviance, or should be familiar with Naviance. They've been working in it, all through their years here at Myth Acton, doing different kind of surveys and tasks in there. So one of the things we want to encourage students to do is to go in there and start looking at the college and career kind of side of that. So when students go into their Naviance account, they all have access through their Launchpad. They should be going in there, going at the top, looking at colleges, and across the top, there's going to be all kinds of things that are accessible to them for, for the college search, for, career information. So on the left side is where they're going to explore the colleges. So there's something called the Super Match in there, where students can put in different things that they're looking for. What kind of, are they looking for certain clubs? Are they looking for a certain location? Are they looking for a certain major? And it'll link up their interest with the colleges that are listed there in Naviance. The nice thing about that too is as students are kind of looking at those schools, you can click through and actually see the profile of the school. And it's a full description of the university. There could be a virtual tour in there. There's statistics about acceptances that are specific to Myth Acton. The nice thing about Naviance, it has our Myth Acton data in it. So it's tailored to our students and our data. Students can go in there then and they can favorite a school that they might have looked at, and if they click on the little heart and turn it red, it actually adds it to the schools that they're thinking about. So it helps them to create a working list of schools. So that's a great starting point for students. Once they do that, also, they should definitely look at the admissions sections of the schools and check out, there's a graph where you can compare GPAs and the testing to kind of see where they fall. So it'll sort of help them also identify what might be a fit school, what might be a reach school. And we do want to see that kind of breadth of information when students are developing that college list. They should have a little bit of everything. It shouldn't all be reach schools, right? Because that wouldn't be good. We want to make sure that there are schools that fit the student. And then, of course, a safety or two in there as well. Anything to add?
I was just gonna say, this is, they can't apply yet. So this is really the preparation period from now until the applications are open and then you can apply. So for Naviance, when you add all of your stuff there, because we use that, or they're gonna have to use that Naviance anyways to submit all their stuff. So have that list there. Again, you can take out, you can add schools, but it's really we're doing all the prep work now. So when the application opens, it's gonna make it 10 times easier for you guys. So again, do the research. I think we might be going into touring schools, but all that stuff should be happening now and into the summer. We do provide admissions counselors that are coming in the fall that are from these schools, from all different colleges. So that is another opportunity that your student can talk with that specific college, but they should be doing that ahead of time as well.
And so when we do have those college rep visits and people come in, we had over 100 last year, if I'm correct about that. We had a lot. The other thing is sometimes they do have fee waivers. College applications can be expensive. Sometimes they give your student a code so that this way they don't have to pay for the fee for the application. And some schools might track interest. So it's really important, that they're showing up to something like that or attending an open house. It's a touch point to show that they care about being admitted to that school. So it would kind of behoove them to go ahead and check that out, even if they visited a school. Maybe touch base again. They can ask direct questions. A lot of times those reps that are coming in, those are the people that are actually reading those applications. And yes, you had a question.
Yeah, so I Googled how many schools should we apply to, but I'm curious what your recommendation is.
Well, that kind of varies.
Yeah, I feel like we've all had a different amount.
Yeah, I mean, I've had students apply to many, many schools, and then I've had students apply to not so many schools. So I think on average, I've had students apply to about 8.
I was going to say 10 to 15.
Google
Yeah.
said at least 7, and one girl who gave us a tour told us she applied to 20, which is
Liz
Yeah.
Henning had one last year that I almost
2 years ago.
stroked out on.
Yeah,
Maybe
I had
that-
one student who did 60.
Don't you have to pay?
She did.
Yep.
She was trying to get into a medical school, so she was really working hard and trying every angle because she was struggling. And then I had a student last year who applied to about 40 She was a 40, yeah,
I
so.
told him 7 to 20, so maybe I'm in like a range.
Yeah,
there.
I mean,
yeah.
like, it's kind of like what Mrs. Henning said. Like, I think that if you have a variety of like those different kinds of schools, like the Safety Reach, like those kind, like it's really kind of dealer's choice. Like, it again, like they're gonna cost money. Like, if your student like is really set on this one school that they want to go to, then like okay, have them apply to that one and then maybe a few others. But I mean, I don't think there's a set number that like we can really like just be like, oh yeah, like that's the best number, because like. Again, like some kids like don't even have like 8 schools that they're really interested in. But I think kind of like what you were mentioning with like the different like levels of like the schools, I think that like you'll be able to figure it out.
Do you want to?
I just want to say one thing. So I was on the advisory board for University of Pittsburgh a few years ago. We had counselors from all over the country who worked with them to kind of learn about new things that Pitt was putting out. Also, they wanted to kind of pick our brains, like what were things that they wanted or we wanted them to be doing from an admission standpoint. And I was talking with Barry Dewar regarding one of our students, Mrs. Hartson, who retired a few years ago, had a student who applied to Pitt, I want to say in December. She was ranked 15 in her class at that time, and she was waitlisted at Pitt. And when I talked with Barry, and he goes, well, you know the number. One year they were 50,000, the next year they went up to 54,000 applications, and it's ridiculous. And then reading a story in Newsweek, it was Newsweek, that they were talking about the state of applications in colleges. And why are so many kids being denied or waitlisted? It's because of students applying to so many schools. So kids they're applying to the Ivies, but then they're throwing out an application to a Pitt, a Penn State, and just saying, or University of Delaware, and saying, I'm using them as a safety net school. And they're applying to so many safety net schools that other students are being kind of pushed out. So it's just a sign of the times, and it's unfortunate. I would like to see smaller number of applications from students, and the key thing is visiting. And the other thing I want to say is students are allowed 5 visits a year that are excused from the attendance office. There is a form. It's very similar to the educational leave form, and just have your kids pick it up from the attendance office. You get it filled out. A lot of times when you do an admissions tour, they will give you a form to take back to the school to give you, it's an excused absence. But kids are applying to schools without really getting to know their schools. And that's one of the things that's got to change.
And also with those college visits, sometimes you can ask to sit in on a class. Sometimes they'll let you spend a weekend. I mean, there's different things that are available for a student who's interested and kind of wants to see what the flavor of that college life is. So I highly recommend.
I do also recommend going to open houses. I know that they're on the weekend. I know that it's kind of not what I said, but they do give you good food. They they vamp it up. So
A couple of them give you dining hall passes too.
yep. They know you're coming, so then they get all the nice food. You
Get
get
the
like
good stuff.
Yeah, you leave like tired. So
Definitely. All right, so as I was saying, in Naviance, we have a lot of tools in there for, not only for college, but also for career exploration. There are career surveys in there. Students who have done some of those can identify clusters where, their interests lie, where their, kind of personalities fit in and what kinds of things they'd be good at doing. There's something in there called Road Trip Nation, which are little short interviews that students can look at, pardon me, because what that does is it's actually people talking about how they got into the jobs that they're currently doing, right? Because we all know it's not always a straight shot to that one thing you end up doing as a career later on in life, right? So, just kind of talking to them about the different paths that they can take to get to where they want to be. We also have a virtual bulletin board. It's on the Myth Acton website. On there's tons of opportunities for summer opportunities. We also have our scholarships listed on there, so that's something you really, really want to check out. College is expensive. It's a process to find scholarships. It's not like a one-shot thing. Sometimes students give up. Start early for scholarships because it takes time, right? And then in terms of experience, so students, anybody prior to senior year can do something called mentorship, right? So mentorship is 20 hours, and a student can receive a quarter of a credit for that. So what they're doing in the classroom is important, right? We all know that it's important what, their educational part of it. But what's also really important is they're going out and having real life experiences. How are you going to know if you like a job if you really don't get a chance to kind of feel it out and see if it's something you want to do, right? Maybe your student is interested in something, but not really sure that that's something they want to do. Is there somebody that you know that's willing to let them do a job shadow? Maybe you want to do a few different job shadows. We'll take it that way too. So if your student wants to do those kind of opportunities, they should be talking to us and we can kind of coach them as to what they need to do. There's a form, very easy peasy to turn in. They'll do a log, just highlighting the hours that they did. It gets signed off, and then they can get a quarter of a credit for that. And again, that's 20 hours. Now, pre-career is a little different. That would be for our seniors. So that's an opportunity for our seniors to go out and kind of do job shadowing. A big job shadow program that we have is with education students. If your student's interested in being a teacher, for example, and selects to do pre-career, they're going to get to go into one of the district schools and actually shadow with a teacher and actually be hands-on with a teacher. I've had students do pre-career through jobs that they currently have. So if they're already working in construction and their plan is to go out and do construction as a job after high school, we're using that as pre-career. We have students that are working retail jobs and learning about business. So there are all different ways that pre-career can be beneficial. It sits usually at 7th period on the schedule, and they actually get a half a credit for one semester. So it's a nice way for students to get real hands-on experience, to get out of school a little bit early, which usually they love. And it's giving them credits too, and it's a great thing to be able to talk about as an experience going forward. So here we go with the application types. So early decision is what we were talking about a few minutes ago. So the issue, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but the important thing to know about early decision is it's binding. So if your student has a school in mind and they want to do anything humanly possible to get into this school, maybe they're not sure they're going to be able to get into that school, but they want to apply. If they get in there, I'm going there, and that's it. That's kind of the way I like to describe early decision. So when a student applies to a school early decision, they actually have to withdraw all their other applications. If they get accepted, right? But they don't always know their financial aid status, which is a little tricky. All right, so that's something to be, considered. For me, I'm a really big fan of early action. We're seeing a lot of students doing that. For some schools, you absolutely want to get your application in early action. A lot of schools are taking their applicants from that pool. For Penn State, for example, you would not want to apply past their early action deadline because you're not getting into main campus if you do. So there are different nuances like that with different kinds of applications. But early action, I would say if a school has it, you probably want to apply that way. There are some schools I have talked to, believe it or not, who said there's really no perk to that. But most of them do have, you'll get your financial aid offers a little bit sooner. You could have priority scheduling, priority housing. So some of the schools really do have perks, not only with applying early and finding out early, but some of those other features as well.
And you can apply to as many early action schools as you want.
Right, non-binding, right?
So this early action, do you still have a long time to decide if you want to go there or not? What is it?
Yeah, you pretty much have the same timeline as anywhere, absolutely.
You might want to see all your options.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? But the nice thing about the early action is you find out sooner. You may find out mid-December if you got into that school, so it gives you plenty of time. With students applying to a bunch of different schools, we see like a variety of deadlines, right? So we have some kids, they're applying to maybe 8 schools, maybe 5 of them are early action, maybe 5 of them are regular decision. Or maybe, there's a couple in there that are rolling admissions, like our state schools are rolling admissions.
So why wouldn't you just apply all early action?
You could,
I mean, why regular decision?
because not every school offers early action. Some schools only offer the regular decision,
And
right?
correct me if I'm wrong, some of those like really high competitive schools, like most likely like want the early action, yeah, or the early decision, I'm sorry.
There are a lot of students who will apply early decision in the early round, and then they get their decision later on, and like right before the winter break, that, unfortunately, they get the denies, then they're all of a sudden doing another wave of applications for schools for regular decision.
When are the typical windows when you hear from the schools? So for early action, you say like kind of right before the holidays?
It's typically, for early action, an early decision. It's usually like December 14th to December 20th, in that range. Some of them are even early January. But your regular decision pool, you're usually hearing in mid-March. The other thing I want to point out we have the deadlines for early decision and early action of November 1 or November 15. There are some schools like Georgia Tech that is October 15th. And there are some schools that last year I was sort of like my head was spinning. There was like early action 1, early action 2, then like early action like spring. It was like early action 2. It was like ridiculous. There were like so many different deadlines. But I just tell the students, do your due diligence, because coming back to this form, the transcript release form, it does say that you need to give your counselor up to 10 school days. So we have students who are coming down. I joke with the kids, we'll never leave a student in the lurch. If they come and they ask us to submit transcripts for the early action, and they come down to the office like October 29th, I will give them a nice hard stare and say, sure, that's exactly how I want to spend my Halloween, like writing a letter of recommendation. But I'll do it, and so will my colleagues. But there's other people that's impacted, like teachers who write letters of rec. And there are some schools who want everything in by that deadline. So we just say, do your due diligence, make sure you're aware of the deadlines.
And I know for me with my students, I tell them, think 2 weeks ahead. Make sure 2 weeks ahead you kind of take a pause, see where you're at, and you should be lining up your ducks in a row 2 weeks in advance, because it will guarantee you should be fine with everything.
Did you mention the rolling?
Yeah, so rolling admission, I said our state schools are rolling admission largely. And then Monco would be open admissions. So that runs until probably like September. Yeah, it goes all year. All right, so application, how to apply, right? So we talked about the deadlines and the kinds of applications, but how do we actually apply? So there are a few different ways. The most popular, most common is the Common App. So the Common App is sort of a one-stop shop where you can apply to over 1,000 schools, is
There's
it?
over 1,100 schools.
Yeah.
When I came up here from Arcola in 2012, there were 400 schools, give or take, that were using the Common App. And so in 14 years, it's gone up to 1,100 schools.
So with the Common App, there's a whole big demographic section. Students are going to have to spend a little bit of time in there filling in their name, their address, information about, whether or not you've gone to college. There'll be information. They want to know what clubs, activities, what are their grades. They're going to ask a lot of information. It's not I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes and then I'm going to wash my hands of it and be done. Which is typically what I see at the last minute when somebody's trying to get an application in a hurry. So what we tell students is at this point, you can actually set up a Common App account. They can go in, they can create a Common App account, they can start filling in that demographic information. They absolutely should get that done before they come back in August. In the fall, they're going to be interested in their activities. It's going to be crunch time, especially if they're doing early action deadlines. So it's one thing that they can kind of strike off their plate, that they got that done. They'll load their colleges in, and they'll be able to apply after August 1st. So Common App is the most widely used platform that we see. The Coalition App is another one. Much fewer colleges use that. I didn't have any. Yeah, 150 to 170 colleges. I don't think I had any coalitions last year. And then there are schools that also have the direct to institution, which means you're applying right off of the college's website. Sometimes there are perks to using Common App over direct to institution. Like, for example, last year I had a student that was working with Arcadia University. They take both Common App and direct to institution. And although their direct app is a little bit easier, maybe a few less questions, they actually recommended doing Common App because it gave that student a chance to upload a portfolio because their grades really weren't that strong, and that portfolio helped them get in. Right, so there are some nuances. So if you have a student, they're like, I don't know which way to apply, it's never a bad idea to contact the school, and your students should do that, to contact the school and ask, is there any difference applying one way or the other? Just give you an edge with what you're trying to accomplish there. And then that transcript release form, did you talk about that before I came in? So the transcript release form, when that gets signed and turned in, it gives us the green light to go ahead and send your students transcripts when they are requesting it. Right? We're not sending it out for any other reason. Your students, however, won't be able to select if they want a transcript in Naviance until that's turned in, because that feature doesn't get turned on in Naviance for each specific student unless this is turned in. And this can trip a lot of students up if they're in the 11th hour trying to get a transcript out, because they won't be able to request it.
And then Common App, like it says that there's essays that are in there. I think there's 5 essays that they can choose from. I think that they work on it in their English classes at the end of the year and again in the fall. But at least like for me, I think that like some of my students, like the essay is what's kind of held them up because like they're working on that or it's not prepared. So they can be working on the essay during the summer, having that ready. So then when we come back in and then they're ready to apply, then it's ready to go. I was gonna say something else with Common App. Oh, when they're signing up for the Common App or just like any like applying, you wanna use your personal email. Because like the Methacton goes away, but also like you get a lot of stuff coming in from Methacton as well. So when you have that personal email, like that's something that the students are gonna be looking at like daily. That's how you're gonna be able to get all the notifications from all the schools. Have your kid use their email, do not use yours, because then it gets tripped up. If they, and then like it's not, because like we've had an instance where like they thought that they were using their email, they created a Common App, but then it wasn't, and then they couldn't link it to Naviance, or they linked it to Naviance and it wasn't working. So I would just stay consistent, have them use their email, it's their responsibility, they should be checking it and knowing what they need to turn in if there is anything.
The other thing too is they might want to create a brand new email account. So, you know, our emails get a lot of traffic and then they build up and then we miss things, right? I mean, we all do it. It's always a good idea for them to just create a brand new professional email address that they can use for college and all those purposes. So this way it's very dedicated and they can kind of weed out, you know, very easily things in there. Students don't really like to use email. They kind of need to shift their mindset and they need to use that a little bit more, because schools will also email out information like you're missing this, or here's a scholarship that if you apply in the next 7 days, you have an opportunity to do that. Kids do miss those. My daughter almost missed it. And honestly, the deadlines are firm, so you're not going to be able to go back and say, hey, please, can we get this in? They're just going to miss it, and that would be a shame. So it's really important that they're on it and checking it.
So you said if they have if they took the PSAT, so they already should have, is that what the Common App is in?
That's college.
That's College Board.
Two different things.
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
College Board is just like it with the SATs and like the standardized testing. Common App is applying to the schools, their college application.
If he created it like with one email, but we decide we want to change the email, you can just go in and change the email.
Yeah, I don't know like the whole.
Yeah.
So with College Board, with Common App, you just go in, you click on the logo for your login, your account, and then go to settings. And then you can change your email, you can change other things if you move, address, just like anything.
I like the idea of a new one that I can also access because I don't trust him to do it.
I would agree, because I remember we had a program a few years ago, and Penn State rep was talking, and she had shared how Penn State had pushed out a financial aid offer to a student, and they missed it, and they missed the window.
I think we'll do that.
Yeah. Do you want to? Thank you. All right, so letters of recommendation. So we're advising that students are talking to their teachers before the end of this school semester. We're seeing schools usually want 2 recommendations, right? So we want at least 1 core in there. Some schools might want 2 core teachers in there, so students need to like kind of look and pay attention to what the schools are requesting. We're asking them to talk to their teachers in person, not by email, and ask them respectfully if they're able to write a letter of recommendation for them. Some teachers like to write them in the summer, so it's kind of good to get it on their radar. Some teachers also have caps. They're only able to do so many letters, right? So it's important that they're thinking about who are those people that can best represent them, which can look like a lot of different things. You know, it could be I did great in that class, or it could be I really struggled, but the teacher worked with me and saw how hard I worked, and now they're going to write a great letter about my work ethic and my problem solving. So letters can come in a lot of different ways. They don't always have to be, I did excellent in that class. The other thing also is that in the fall, students are going to have to formally request a letter of recommendation from their teachers. That's a little bit of a separate process. I kind of call that part 2 of colleging that we talk about in the fall. But they will need to formally put that request in Naviance. That request goes to the teacher will write that letter, and it will electronically be uploaded into their Common App. So that's why it has to be done through Naviance. But the conversations with teachers, that should be happening now.
Some of them might want like a resume. It kind of just like depends on the teacher. I think that it's like, again, I think that they work on a resume in their English class, but it's just kind of good for them to have it too. We kind of asked for that for our letter of recommendation, but also like they're supposed to be putting in like their like extracurriculars and stuff. So it's good to have that already kind of started if they don't have it already.
So although they have to request letters of recommendation from specific teachers through Naviance, if your student is applying to a Common App school, we write a letter of recommendation for them also. They don't need to request our letter, but we will be generating a letter for them. We will ask them to do a brag sheet for us. It helps us put together, you know, more information because we have some information on them, but sometimes they're doing some really cool programs and things like that that we don't always hear about in the moment. So that kind of information is captured in a brag sheet, so we can kind of use that and tailor that toward, you know, making them really stand out on paper for our letters of recommendation. All right. Do you want to start with this one?
Oh, yeah. So vocational and 2-year pathways. So the community college, Montco, it's a great community college. Benefits, obviously, like it's saving a lot of money and you still are getting a great education with Montco. The application, it takes 15 minutes, it's free. It partners with a lot of great schools that like you can do your 2 years and then you can transfer. Again, like a great financial option. If your student is like, doesn't maybe know what they want to do or what they want to major in. So you're like, you know what, maybe like you just like do your gen eds at Montco and then we can transfer. They can work there, they can live at home. Again, a great financial option. We're really lucky to have like great community colleges that are around us that give them just as best education as if they were to just go to a 4-year school.
So also another word on community colleges, when students have to transfer, because it's a 2-year program at the community college, when students transfer, they actually do a transfer fair. So they're pros at getting your student to that next destination. And don't think that community college isn't like substantial in their majors. I mean, I had my nephew go through for engineering and is now at Temple. My niece, radiology, now going to Widener. So these are all relationships, you know, where they can carry those credits, move on at a good price point. Some colleges, I think Drexel is still doing it. A couple years ago, Drexel rolled out that if you start at Montco and then transfer to Drexel, you actually get like a $5,000 scholarship for doing it that way. So there could be perks like that available too through the community college. So don't discount the value of the community college. Trade schools is another opportunity for students. So trade schools offer programs that are 2-year programs, could be like a radiology program, dental hygiene program, could be construction management program, could be a lot of different things. But some of these schools also have 4-year programs where you can get a solid 4-year degree with a lot of hands-on experience. I feel like the trade schools give you a lot of hands-on opportunity. That's a little bit different than a traditional college. But they're great things to do. With trade, students can go get that certificate and then be out working, making a good living. And then sometimes, you know, when they're out there working, their employers will pick up the tab and they can continue their education even. So there are a lot of perks to looking at the trade schools too.
The application process is kind of the same like when you're applying to college. Some of them are on the Common App. I think Penn College, that's on the Common App. So they're still going to be applying and they're still going to be like, I don't know if it's going to be as in depth as like a 4-year university, but you still have to go through the same thing.
So Ms. Henning mentioned Drexel and Delaware County or Montgomery County Community College. The Montgomery County Community College has articulation agreements with a lot of schools. It's not just Drexel, where if you maintain a certain GPA and you're applying to a certain program, that they will transfer all the credits. So that's an associate, so you're halfway done. And they'll give you scholarship monies to encourage you to do this. I sat at a presentation with Montgomery County Community College a few years ago. Gentleman who was the keynote speaker was a graduate of Monco. He was also a graduate of Temple University, Widener Law School, and was currently working down in DC for a Fortune 500 company. He said, I was never asked where I started my school. I was asked where I graduated. I had a Bachelor of Science from Temple. I have my law degree from Widener. But I tell everybody I got my start at Montgomery County Community College. Had great relationships with professors there that really helped me kind of find out who I was, helped me be successful, and lead me into the career that he ultimately had. Working as a lawyer in DC, working with the Army National Guard, he was very, very, confident, and he said, I wasn't always that way. He was a graduate of Lansdale Catholic, went to Monco, and he goes, that's where I found myself. So you're talking about $6,000 a year versus if you're talking about a state school like a Shippensburg or Westchester, you're talking about $28,000 a year. So 2 years at those schools, that's $56,000. 2 years at Monco, $12,000. It's a great opportunity to not put yourself into intense student debt. It's great for a lot of kids. And as also was shared, there's a lot of kids who aren't sure what they want to do. And they say, you know what, I'm just going to go out and work. My strong advice is, if your kids do that, that's okay. But take at least 1 or 2 classes at Monco. Stay in the whole routine of studying and going to school. Because if you step away from it for a couple years, it's harder to get back into it. So I just had that conversation with one of my junior parents the other day. And she's like, my son's not going to do this, he's going to do that. And I want him to take a class at Monco. Can you help me? And I'm definitely encouraging that.
All right, so some of our students are actually going through NCAA recruitment. So if your student is going through that, we want to encourage your student to talk to the counselor so we're aware.
In the fall, we also do have workshops for financial aid. We have a financial aid night, and then we have someone from the community college to come in for, or is it Westchester, for a FAFSA night.
Financial aid is FIA and Westchester.
In Westchester.
And the FAFSA completion night is
Yeah.
from Monco.
Yeah, so we have like 2 different workshops. So if you want to know the overview of financial aid, we have that presentation. And then if you need to if you need specific help with completing your FAFSA, we have someone here to help as well.
So the FAFSA opens up in the fall, usually October, if it's still October. A couple of years ago it moved, and then they brought it back to October. Yeah, it's been good in the last year. I would say they've whittled it down pretty well. It's pretty easy to fill out now, which is good news, because I think most people find it to be daunting. Even if you're not sure your student will qualify for financial aid, apply through the FAFSA. A lot of times that's the gateway to get any aid from the school. They want to see that you filled out a FAFSA, and then if you qualify for something, the school can kind of work with you to see if there's something they qualify for. But like I said, they do like to see that FAFSA. It doesn't commit you to anything. It just helps them identify, where the gap is and what maybe they can do to fill that kind of donut hole, so that your student might be able to attend. All right, so these are some of the do's and don'ts we shared with your students. Do check your email, right? Not only do we want them to be checking email with the college stuff that's coming up, but sometimes we want to contact them too. We will pull them out if we need to, but we want to communicate. We want to get them used to communicating, so we want them to start checking their email. The other thing is go on those college visits. We kind of highlighted the importance of that. It's really hard to explain to a student, but I do tell them there's nothing like standing somewhere and realizing, yeah, this is where I want to be, right? There's that feeling that you get from being somewhere and feeling like you fit there. So we highly recommend that. Applying for scholarships, why not Like we said, college is expensive, give it a shot. You have nothing to lose by putting a little bit of time in, and the gain could be really good. Also, scholarships, you don't only have to apply for a scholarship as a freshman going into college. There are scholarships for college sophomores, juniors, so you can keep looking for scholarships. It doesn't just end there, okay? We definitely want students to keep us informed. Let us know what's going on. Let us know your interests. We can kind of steer students in a direction of maybe a program that we know about. So just kind of keeping us in the loop is very useful. We want students to also challenge themselves. So one thing about the transcripts, when you see your students' transcripts on the bottom right, you're seeing all their classes that they're currently taking. When they get that transcript in the fall, you're going to see the senior classes that they're registered for. Colleges are going to see what classes they're registered for. I know when I'm writing letters sometimes for students, I talk about how the student has decided to continue challenging themselves with, these higher level courses, going on and taking that 4th year of math or science that we don't necessarily require, but the student is doing that anyway. So colleges will look at that. They want to see that students aren't just completely doing the senior slide, So definitely, we encourage that. So some things not to do would be, let's not procrastinate. So we all know that, when things get hard, students might not be as excited. They might avoid a little bit. They might get a little last minute. So we're just trying to get them to, this is a great planning time. Start thinking about what you want to do. We're not pressuring, but it's just time to start having these conversations. We're going to be meeting with them this spring. We're going to kind of be bringing that up to the forefront and kind of moving them along to start thinking about those things. And then we know that you're going to be probably having those conversations at home as well. So we want to partner with you to kind of help them kind of progress forward. And then we'll meet with them in the fall and kind of see where they're at and kind of go from there. Deadlines are a big thing. So in high school, there is a lot of flexibility. But kind of when we jump out of the high school realm, sometimes there's not as much flexibility, right? If you're late for a doctor's appointment, they're going to bill you. There's just certain opportunities you're going to miss if you don't know when the deadlines are. With the college application process, some schools will be very stringent about the deadlines. Most schools will be. So you want to make sure your student knows exactly when those deadlines are coming. And also just deadlines with us too. And then, they need to sign up, make sure they get their cap and gown, all those other things. There's a lot of deadlines in senior year they need to be mindful about. And then I really do feel that if students are in contact with us, we can really help them out. But if they don't let us know what's going on, they might lose out on an opportunity. So we just encourage that ongoing communication. All right. And then we have that copy of the College and Career Guide. You all have it in your folder. If you open up your folders, it'll be on the left side of your folder. So that's available for you. Students had, I know for me, students had the option of picking up a folder. They didn't have to. If you have that folder, please share it with your students. We do have those resources online. We post stuff on their Google Classroom. They have access to stuff. They can come down and get something if they lose it or if you lose it. So please just have them follow up with us. We're happy to support them. This is a big journey. There's a lot of pieces to it, and we'll help them with that. And we can chunk it out for them. Some students need a little bit more hand-holding than others. Some students, they see me once and I don't see them again until they tell me they got accepted. So everybody's on a different spot, a different path, and that's totally fine, and it should be that way. And then, if you have any questions too as parents, we're here for you just as well. We'll partner with you to support your student.
If you have the signed transcript release form, you can drop it off again to us
Yes.
before you leave.
And thank you so much for coming too.